I am unable to ask my friends to return the money they borrowed from me. Sometimes it's a small amount, but over time it builds up to a significant sum. It is their responsibility to return the money without me even asking. How can people be so ignorant? Why do they take things for granted? I do not want to compromise our relationships with confrontations, but as a man, I do not like making excuses to get my money back. Story 1. I always assume that when I let a friend or family member borrow money from me, it is a gift and I will never see it again. If you feel disrespected, the relationship is already compromised. You need to figure out how to move on or simply ask for repayment. Story 2-1. If you cannot afford to lose it, do not loan it without collateral. You need to communicate within an appropriate time frame. Actually ask them when they will be able to pay it back, and at that time, inquire if they have not done so. If it is 2 years later, do not be the person who brings up that time you loaned Bobby $20. If what we are discussing is an accumulation of small amounts, then stop thinking that way. The most effective way to improve is to be firmer about making loans in the first place. Story 3. Once money leaves my hand, I never expect to see it again. It's gone. If it comes back to me, then excellent. Money I wasn't counting on having has now come into my possession. Most often, I just tell people to get themselves in a stable position and then pay it forward. I never give money that is necessary to pay bills and expenses. That way, I'm not harming myself by helping someone else out. You need to decide what is more important, your friendship with that person or the money. If it's the money, don't give it away. If it's the friendship, don't expect to see that money again. Story 4. If they ask again, I would say that unfortunately, you have not repaid the last amount I lent you, which I still need to be repaid. Story 5. Asking for your money back and standing up for yourself is not unmanly. Reflect on your thoughts about manliness. Story 6. I have friends to whom I have lent $20,000, and I have friends to whom I wouldn't lend $20. If I have to ask for it back, they fall into the second category. Story 7. Stop giving out money. This is your first step. Second, directly ask for repayment. I lent you $100 a few weeks ago. When do you expect to pay it back? Keep asking until you receive payment. If they continue to avoid repayment, then congratulations, you have learned a life lesson. Do not lend out money. Cut them out and move on. Story 8. You essentially paid those people to leave. Do not lend or give away money. These individuals are just taking advantage of you. Story 9. Best line I ever heard a man say regarding lending money to friends: I don't lend money. I like to keep my friends. Story 10. I really dislike the idea of just assuming something is a gift. I am helping you out, so please show some respect and repay it. We should hold people accountable. Story 11. Neither a lender nor a borrower be, as Benjamin Franklin stated. Do not expect it back. If necessary, try using a money request application. Story 12. You ask for the first time. Just don't be confrontational about it. Hey, it's been a while. I just wanted to make sure you haven't forgotten. Then say, hey, can I get that back by insert specific date here? After that, stop being a bank or ask for a post-dated check. Story 13. Do not lend money to people you care about. Give it to them. If they care about you, they will make the effort to pay you back. If someone clearly cannot make ends meet, how are they suddenly going to manage both meeting their expenses and paying you back? If a friend repeatedly asks you for small amounts of money and never repays you, they might be taking advantage of you. The next time you know they have money, ask to borrow a similar amount and observe their reaction. Story 14. I do not lend money to most people. I am not a bank. I work hard for my money and am under no obligation to lend to those who are unlikely to pay me back. Story 15. I called J.G. Wentworth at 877-227-4669. It's my money, and I want it now. Story 16. Maybe do not lend any money in the future. Is it £10, £100, or £1,000? A friend of a friend borrowed £150 from my friend and made up various excuses for why he couldn't pay it back. Now that he really needs cash that would be easy to lend, he is told to use a bank. Story 17. I am looking over the list of people who borrowed money from me, as I need it now. I don't have time to pick it up myself, so my 5 cousins visiting from Uzbekistan will come over to you tonight at exactly 9 p.m. Please leave it outside your door 5 minutes before 9. You don't want to talk to them. Thank you. Story 18. Some people see others merely as tools to gain benefits and then move on to the next person. I once knew someone to whom I lent money little by little. He would return it to me, but then he borrowed a larger amount and did not pay it back even after I asked him many times. Eventually, I blocked him and moved on. It has been over 3 years, and that person has never attempted to contact me. Recently, I saw his TikTok, and he appears to be living a luxurious life. Story 19. I do not lend friends money. If they really need it, I consider it a gift. That type of deal puts too much strain on even a lifelong relationship. Story 20. You don't. If it's friends, always assume it's a gift. If they return it, your value as a friend increases. If they don't and they have the money, you know how much they value you. It's a small price to pay to understand the integrity of your friends. If they're not friends, then that's on you. Story 21. Some people intentionally do not pay you back because they think you will forget or will not ask due to awkwardness. I usually ask in a direct or indirect way. Reminding them that they have not paid you back may embarrass them, and embarrassment often works. Alternatively, you can recover your money by having them pay for something the next time you are together. For example, if that person owes you $200, you could ask them to buy the tickets for the next concert you attend together and then not pay them back or only pay the difference you owe if there is any. Story 22. My friend owes me $50. 40 for insurance that he was short on, and he had a job interview which he told me he couldn't attend because he lacked gas. I gave him $10 for gas so he could go to that job. Ever since then, he has been out to the club multiple times, including this past Friday, spending money on drinks and getting sections. He has been irresponsible, especially since his girlfriend broke up with him. He is now driving without insurance, got fired from his job because he kept calling out and going to work late. I am not going to mention that he owes me $50, but I promise I will never give him another dollar. And yes, I could really use those $50. Story 23. Rule number 1. Never expect anyone to pay you back. If they do, that is just a bonus. Never view it as lending someone money. You are giving it to them and hoping they will pay you back eventually. Story 24. Whatever money you decide to lend, consider it gone. Never expect them to pay you back because 99% of the time they don't. If they do in a fast manner, however, you now know you can actually trust that person. Story 25. Why are you worrying about how to maintain relationships with someone who stole your money? If they don't return it, that's theft. I offer people 1 to 3 chances. Pay back late and I won't lend again. Steal and we will never communicate again. Story 26. Do not lend. Give. I prefer giving gifts instead of money because money can represent anything, especially something that fuels a bad habit. Story 27. The best thing I ever did was let a guy I know borrow $250. I knew he wasn't going to pay me back, and I didn't really have the money to lend either. However, I haven't heard from that guy in over 5 years, and it is a blessing. Story 28. I assume it's a gift. I only give everyone money once. If they pay me back, then I will give them money again. Story 29. Some people take advantage of your kindness and abuse your pride by asking for money back. This has happened to me on numerous occasions, specifically with very close friends. If they don't offer to return the money themselves, a simple message like, "Hey, could you please send that money over? I have a bill coming up," can be helpful. While you don't need to explain yourself, in these situations, it's often necessary if you want to maintain your friendship. My advice is to avoid lending money to these types of friends again, as it can ruin your relationship. Sometimes, this is the cost of discovering who your true friends are. Story 30. If I have the money, I will let them borrow it. I will not pursue them for repayment. They can pay me back and borrow from me in the future. If they do not repay, I am not concerned, but I will not lend anything to them again or cover any expenses for them while they are out. Story 31. Here are a few simple rules to follow. 1. Do not lend money to people who are already in debt to you. If you do, ensure that the accumulated debt does not exceed the amount you would be willing to lend at one time. Before lending money to anyone, decide whether it is a gift that they may optionally pay back when able or a loan that you expect to be repaid. Stick to that decision. Never lend anyone money that you cannot afford to lose. While they should always pay you back, you should protect yourself. If someone consistently fails to repay you, consider their actions. They lack respect for you. It is up to you whether you still want to be friends with them, but demand respect and be prepared to walk away if they cannot provide it. Keep track of which friends are reliable borrowers and which are not. If you borrow money from them, remember who the trustworthy creditors are. Additionally, you should always follow up and remind them of their debt. People can genuinely forget, and it is just poor communication not to ensure they remember. Reconfirm when they will pay you back. Do not allow them to forget more than once. If you have to ask them repeatedly, that is their responsibility, not yours. If you feel that a loan is harming your friendship more than the amount you lent, consider forgiving it. However, remember what happened. If you lend them money again, nothing will change. When asking to have the money returned, keep records such as screenshots or written agreements. Depending on the situation, you can ask different types of questions. Hey, do you remember the debt you owe me? When do you plan to pay it back? Hey, I recall that you borrowed this amount from me. I don't remember you paying it back. Am I mistaken? Story 32. Don't give family or friends money. If my son asks me, can I borrow some money for food for my kids? I will take him shopping but never lend cash. I consider it a good deed. I used to lend out $100, and if I didn't get it back, I viewed it as the cost of learning if someone is not trustworthy. I cut them from my life. I still have uncles in my inbox that I have not answered for 5 years because of this. Story 33. They clearly think they can take advantage of you. Just ask, when will you repay the money I loaned you? If they make excuses or ignore you, then you've just paid a small fee to remove a negative person from your life. Money is a surefire way for friendships to go sour. Story 34. I have one ironclad rule for money. I never lend it. I only give it. Only lend money you're prepared to never see again. Story 35. I reached out asking if they could pay a specific amount every paycheck until it was fully paid off. It was low enough that it wouldn't strain their finances. Story 36. It took me a while to work this out. If someone is rude enough to do this to you and knowingly not repaying, they are the kind of person you have to be blunt with. Look them squarely in the eyes and say, when can I expect the money you owe me? You have had my money for 4 months, and I needed to pay for my dentist or mortgage. If you know them well enough for them to ask you to lend them money, they cannot take offense to you asking. But you have to look them in the eye so they can't wriggle out of it. If they say Thursday, turn up with a packet of biscuits or a 6-pack and say, I've come for my money. Shall we have a cup of tea and a biscuit? If they don't have the cash, it will be the longest and most awkward time while they squirm. Then you can turn up for the balance. Story 37. They are not your friends. They are leeches. You ask for money one time. You establish a date and time for them to give it to you. If that date and time pass without repayment, your relationship is over. In the future, if a friend asks to borrow money, consider that money a gift. If you expect it back, you become a creditor, not a friend. Ask for it back a few months later. If excuses are given or there is disbelief that you expect repayment, they are leeches. Remove them from your life. Story 38. I ask them about payday. However, I only lend to my friends who have not let me down. They always pay on time. Story 39. Take this as a sign of your friend's character. He is taking money from you knowing he is either unable or unwilling to pay it back. Stop lending him money. If you notice he is less friendly after the money stops flowing, you have just paid a small price to learn he is not really your friend. Story 40. This kind of worked for me both in good and bad ways. When my friends invited me out, I would tell them I was broke, but if they had that $50 I lent them a while back, I could join them. After a couple of those comments, we drifted apart because another person owed me $40. They chose not to see me anymore rather than pay me back. It cost me $90 to realize I had the wrong kind of friends. A bargain, really. Story 41. Welcome to the moral of the story. Do not lend people money. Either part with it forever or do not give it up. Most of the time, you are not getting it back. Take this as a lesson and do not ask for it again. Keep your friends. In the future, do not lend money to the same people, and if you do give them more money, do not expect it back. Story 42. Never lend money. The moment you do, you risk losing both your money and your friendship. Getting repaid will often be the least of their priorities. Story 43. I'm not a man, but this is the golden rule my dad taught me about lending money. If you can't afford to lose it and never see it again, you shouldn't lend it to begin with. The reason for this is simple. If you need your money, and your friend needs money because they don't have any of their own, then expecting someone without funds to pay you back is flawed logic. Still, I've lost friends over amounts less than $100. Instead of admitting they can't pay me back, they just ghosted me. Story 44. I used to be in that same situation. However, after several instances of people not paying me back while continuing to ask for money, I decided to change my approach. The next time someone came to borrow money, I had a document prepared that they had to sign. It outlined when they would be paid, how I expected to be repaid, and the consequences if they did not adhere to our agreement on payday. I included some interest, which would continue to increase until I received both the principal and the interest back. As a result, nobody asked to borrow money from me again. Story 45. Never lend money or sell something, especially a car, to friends or family. I used to do this, but a friend borrowed money from me for rent in the mid-1990s and refused to pay it back. He stopped taking my calls and started avoiding me. It felt like a scene from a movie. It was worth a certain amount of money to rid myself of a false friend. Since then, I only give money. Story 46. I noticed long ago how quickly my friends were to ask for money back if we went out and I was short on cash that night. The other way around, not a word. I don't lend. When out with my good friends, I'll buy them dinner. They can get the next one and so on. Story 47. It is said that you should never lend money with the assumption that you will get it back. If you expect it back, create a contract. Story 48. I used to work in collections. Something I learned was that it's easier to have these conversations when you set up tangible times. When you give out money, there should be an agreed-upon date for when it should be paid back. And by date, I mean a day that can be circled on a calendar. A favorite excuse is people saying they would pay as soon as they got paid again. They wouldn't have a job or anything, just whenever the money magically showed up. I had another person tell me she would pay as soon as Jesus gave her a blessing. The reason people use these excuses is that they aren't specific. Jesus could bless that woman today or 40 years after we spoke. As long as it eventually happens, she can convince herself that she didn't technically lie. Setting a hard date, such as Friday, the 25th of this month, or 2 weeks from today, is always a good idea because it limits the likelihood that things will get resolved. Another thing I've learned is that sometimes people do forget or need a push to pay you. I'm including myself in that. Sometimes you think you paid something and you didn't. By default, my approach is to assume that everyone forgot. So when I bring it up, I do it in a way that avoids being overly accusatory while making it clear I want it back. Hey, do you think I could get that $50 you owe me? I kind of need it for something I have to do on Friday. There is no thing on Friday. I just set up a date. If the date doesn't work, they have to give me another date. It's just a quick ask to open up the conversation. It's frustrating that you have to do it sometimes, but waiting and hoping they eventually pay up after a long period has a much lower chance of success. It's worth mentioning that it's never a good idea to loan out money you can't afford to lose. It's also worth noting that sometimes it's worth losing the money to find out which friends or relatives are willing to jeopardize a relationship over money. Anyone getting offended by you asking for money they owe you is probably not worth keeping around. Story 49. I normally do not lend money unless I can afford to not get it back. If you seriously need the money back, ask them directly. It is their responsibility to pay you back. If they make excuses, you have two options. Forget your money or forget your relationship with them and your money. Story 50. You grow a spine and start saying no. Consider any money owed to you now a gift and move on. Don't be a doormat. Story 51. Unless they are my mother, I never lend or gift money to anyone. Where were they when I needed help? They can take care of themselves for all I care. Story 52. If you aren't comfortable asking for the money back, you should become comfortable refusing to lend money. Story 53. I stopped lending money to friends years ago. Lesson learned. It's frustrating to have to remind them. And if you do, you often hear, "Oh, I didn't know you needed it so badly." Story 54. I sent them a video clip of a scene from The Sopranos. Not really. I just don't lend people money. Story 55. I'm going to be honest about this. I'm unable to ask my friends to return the money they borrowed from me. Grow some courage. How can people be so ignorant? How can they take things for granted? They've noticed you're passive and you won't take action. People who let others take advantage of them are often easy to recognize. If you lack the confidence to stand up for yourself, you will have many acquaintances asking you for favors. Since you mentioned multiple friends, it seems to be a recurring pattern in your life that is noticeable to anyone looking for someone to exploit. I don't want to jeopardize our relationships with confrontations, but as a man, I don't want to make excuses to get my money back. They see you as an easy target, and they will continue as long as you allow it. Stop making excuses. Make demands of them. If it was a legitimate loan to a friend, then you should have something to show for it, such as a written and signed promissory note that specifies repayment guidelines. Use what you wrote in that document. You owe me money. Here's the paper trail you left. It's due on the 15th. On the 16th, if you haven't paid, I will have to consult a lawyer, and our friendship may be over. If you don't have that, then you're not a friend giving a loan. Instead, you're a victim of deception. Story 56. You don't need any excuse, brother. It is honorable and honest to settle all debts on either side. You need to state that you lent the money and require its return immediately. They took the loan based on your good fortune with assurances about their character. If they can't pay, they don't respect the loan and therefore don't respect your relationship. If they have the money ready for you, then they are a bad friend. They should possibly be given one more chance to pay, but the relationship is probably over. What kind of friend keeps a loan to themselves? If they won't pay, they simply don't respect you. The money is gone, and your relationship is over. In either case, you have learned a valuable lesson about life. A friend pays their debts. It only takes one unpaid debt to reveal the true nature of a friend. You can choose to chase them over this debt, but life is too short. Money often brings out the worst in people, but it also reveals the truth. Money is worth more to these friends than honesty and goodness. You've learned your lesson, brother. Let it go and move on. Story 57. When I was younger, I would just burn that bridge. Now that I am older, I patiently wait, sometimes for years, for an opportunity that compensates me equally or puts me slightly ahead. Then, I maintain direct eye contact with them and seize that opportunity. They know. If they complain, I remind them that it is money owed. They never do, though. They feel embarrassed. Story 58. I do not ask for money to be returned. I simply do not lend money or pay for items that I want returned or refunded. Story 59. I only give money to people I know will return it. Out of all my friends, 3 of them will get it. The rest won't. Story 60. Step 1. Establish my expectations for repayment at the time I lend money. Step 2. Remind them that payment is due as the deadline approaches. Step 3. Request the money back as promised. Step 4. If not returned, decline to participate in activities that require money and inform others that they are refusing to pay me back while spending on personal entertainment. Story 61. It's hard to get blood out of a turnip. I have only been paid back about 10% of the time. Now I pretend to be poor so I do not have to worry about it. Story 62. Collateral. They give me something of equal or greater value to hold on to. My friend gave me his grandfather's 870 Ringmaster last time. I hold it and he pays me back to get his gun returned. I don't charge interest. Story 63. If you get it back, great. If not, it is a life lesson and I wouldn't be loaning any more money to them. Story 64. 15 bucks, little man. Put that in my hand. Story 65. Hey, remember the money I lent you? I need it now. How soon can you give it to me? I'm in a difficult situation and I need the money. After this, remind them every day personally until you receive it. If you had a relationship, they will work on it. If they don't care for you and leave you when you need what is rightfully yours, then they are not a true friend. Story 66. Never give more than you can afford to part with, and when you do not expect it back. However, do ask them to lend you money. Story 67. If you are at the point where you need to ask for your money back, it may be challenging to actually receive it. In my experience, it is better to be upfront when lending money and possibly set a date for when you expect it to be repaid. This way, it is clear and there is less awkwardness later. If it is already past that point, just be honest and polite about needing the money returned. Story 68. If you want to be polite, you could say, "Do you have the money I lent you? I need it for an upcoming expense." If you want to be more direct, you might say, "I need my money back. If you don't repay me, I won't lend to you in the future." In either scenario, the need to bring this up indicates they likely have no intention of repaying, so consider treating them accordingly and refrain from lending again. Story 69. Venmo request with a simple one-liner. $40 for half the bar tab from last week. If they ask for more, simply say, "No, you still owe me from last time. You can cover this tab." Story 70. I hope it's okay to respond. This is an important topic, and I empathize with your situation. A close relative of mine borrowed nearly $40,000 from me to purchase a business. He had borrowed money from me before and paid it back, but very slowly. I have a rule. I do not lend what I cannot afford to lose. In my case, I made the loan out of love, fully aware it might not be repaid. In your situation, I would politely decline to lend to anyone who has not repaid a previous loan. Keep it simple by saying something like, "I would like to help you, but I am unable to provide a loan. That's all. Move on." You can ask for payments on the other loans, but honestly, they know they owe it. Consider it a lesson learned. Best of luck. Story 71. You need to be clear and upfront before you lend them the money about the date you need it all back. You can say, "I am sending you this application to download that tracks how much we owe each other. I am starting to have a hard time keeping track. Here it is." Story 72. I usually tell them ahead of time what the deadline is. They don't pay back. If it's a large amount, I guess I would take them to court. However, I don't loan large amounts unless they have proven trustworthy. If they do pay back but late, then they lose their borrowing privileges. I usually text or call and say, "When do I get my money back?" Story 73. If I lend you money as a friend, I expect it to be paid back. If I have to look for you or ask for it, I will be upset. If necessary, I will take action if I have to wait longer than what is reasonable, so you better give me my money. Story 74. Just tell them, "Hey, we still need to settle the money you owe me. Don't let up." Remind them every few days. Then stop lending money or covering their portion of a bill, and ask for separate bills when you dine out. I always request a separate bill for meals. If the server cannot or will not accommodate that, we settle up at the table using cash or a payment app. Story 75. Just ask. Yes, they should pay you back, but it is perfectly fine for you to step up and ask. Stand up for yourself and stop lending people money. Story 76. If you are unable to ask for your money back, you also seem unable to lend it. This is called giving. Make new friends. Story 77. You could always start with, "Hey, I could use that money I lent you." Or next time they ask, say, "Sorry, your credit limit has been reached." Story 78. My rule is simple. I never lend more than I can afford to lose, and I consider it gone. If they pay me back, it is a pleasant surprise. If they do not, I just forget about it and move on. No tension, no hard feelings, ever. Story 79. The easiest way is if you are getting food or drinks together, and you can simply say, "Hey, can you put mine on your tab to even up that $20 you borrowed?" But don't young people just send payment requests, usually with a funny line about what it's for, like pest control? Story 80. I do not give out money. Unless it is to treat someone to dinner, borrowing is not an option. Do not give out money you are not okay with never getting back. Story 81. Remind them once a week, then every other day, then every day. Can get annoying, but sometimes it works. Now you know never to lend them money again. Hopefully it was a cheap lesson. Cut them out of your life if they don't pay you back. If they can't get money from a bank, you know something is wrong. In general, I likely won't loan people money without any collateral. A small gift might be appropriate if things are tough, but there's usually a better path than handing them cash. Story 82. The best way to avoid worrying about asking for the money back is not to lend or give money to anyone. I have learned that it's best not to lend money to family or friends, as it can lead to the end of friendships and family relationships. Story 83. I don't lend money, as it creates stress in relationships. I only give money as a gift. Sometimes people promise to repay it, but I never carry that expectation. Story 84. Why are you lending money to people? To make things worse, it sounds like you are charging them interest. You need to rethink your life a little. Usury is the profit of unscrupulous individuals. Story 85. I can always tell my friend wants something when she starts the conversation with, "Hey buddy." Story 86. Besides the obvious advice of never lending money you expect back, just say, "Oh hey, I have Apple Pay, Cash App, or Venmo for that $30 you owe me. Which one do you have so I can send you my info?" Be direct. Don't say, "Let me know when." Just say it like you expect them to pay you back right at that moment. Be confident. Then work on your boundaries and learn to say no. If you lend someone money and before they pay you back, when they ask for more, just say, "Yeah, you still owe me that $20, so I can't do that." You need to get over feeling bad or guilty or like you're hurting their feelings. Resentment builds, and you end up not only upset that the friend is taking advantage of you, but you also get mad at yourself for letting it happen. Realize that they're not ignorant. They're taking advantage of the situation because you're allowing it. Story 87. I haven't had this problem as an adult, as I only give money and never lend it. I usually give smaller amounts for things like drinks and food when I go out with friends. However, when I was in college, I had a few friends who often didn't have cash or forgot their wallets. I kept a log on my phone of all the money borrowed, and eventually, it reached about $500 for one friend, $300 for another, and $200 for someone else. I thought it was kind of unfair to keep accumulating the cash without any suggestion to pay it back. So, I asked my friends to reimburse me, and they sent the money through the payment app within minutes. Story 88. I primarily lend to family. I usually have an idea of when they will be able to repay me and only inquire close to that time. If I do not get repaid or receive excuses, I will not lend again. Story 89. Remember the $80 I lent you so far? I'm asking because I'm in a bit of a difficult situation. If they are forgetful and disorganized like I am, they might respond with, "Thank you for reminding me," followed by a notification from a payment app or a response such as, "I don't have $80, but I have a different amount. Would that work for you?" Or, "Sorry, I don't get paid until Friday. Can you wait until then?" This assumes they are your true friends. If you find yourself in an argument with them, receiving endless excuses, guilt trips, or complete silence, consider removing them from your life. Don't be discouraged, as you did not lose both your money and your friends. You invested your money to learn the truth about your friendships, which is valuable information. Story 90. You do not lend to friends and family. It is gone, and likely so are your friends. I am sorry for your losses. Story 91. If it's important, just ask them directly. They may have forgotten, but that is unlikely. Depending on their response, you will know if they are truly your friends. Story 92. If you lend out money, you need to have one of two mindsets. Do not plan on ever getting the money back. It is a pleasant surprise if you do get repaid. B. Be willing and able to engage in or threaten violence if necessary to get repaid. Story 93. If you lend money to friends, you are effectively giving it to them with no expectation of ever getting it back. That's a pro-life tip. You will never get it back. Story 94. If you lend people money without a written agreement, consider it a gift. I learned that lesson years ago. I never lend anyone any money. You have no legal recourse. Story 95. Obtainable, offbeat, relieved, cheerful, fragile, yam, roof, tiny, oil, bored. Story 96. They would have paid you back earlier if they wanted to. The money is gone. You have to accept that you won't be getting it back. Story 97. If you are not willing to put the loan in writing with a scheduled payment plan, consider it a gift, and anything you receive back is an added benefit. It may sound heartless, but if I am loaning someone a significant amount of money that would affect me if it is not repaid, it will be documented. If you are not comfortable giving a specific amount, do not. Boundaries are important, and if you are not in a position to give that amount, it is not your responsibility to do so. Story 98. Do not lend people money. If you lend money, do not expect to get it back. That is just how things are. It is a tough lesson. Story 99. I don't lend people money. If you need to ask, just say, "Can I get that amount you owe me?" If they don't return it, they aren't true friends. They are just users. Story 100. If I lend a significant amount of money with the intention of retrieving it, there will be a contract involved, even for family and friends. Generally, I provide funds when needed. If I receive it back, that's great. However, I will not put myself in a difficult position by lending money, so I do not require its return. My main rule is that if you borrow money and do not return it, do not ask for more. Story 101. Anytime you let someone borrow money, be okay with them not paying you back because they usually won't. Don't be worried about asking them either. It's their responsibility if they forget. Just say, "Hey, do you have that $20 yet?" If they say no, ask when they will have it. If they do not deliver on that day, never let them borrow anything again. Story 102. If you have difficulty confronting someone in a tactful manner about what is owed to you, then you shouldn't be lending money. If someone still owes me from the last time, I have a strict rule of not lending them more, and I communicate that to them. The only exception is my employees, as it's technically only an advance on their pay, which is repaid directly from their paycheck, so I don't have to worry about being reimbursed and creating awkward tension. To answer the actual question, I simply bring it up. "Hey, you still owe me that money from before. When do you plan on paying me back?" Also, never loan out money that you can't afford to lose indefinitely. Story 103. First, stop lending them money if they aren't paying you back. If you don't speak up and tell them they owe you, they will continue to take advantage of you. Be clear and assertive. Let them know that you will lend them money, but they must repay you. If they don't, they aren't true friends, and you shouldn't be lending to them in the first place. Story 104. What the person below said is that giving money is fine. If you receive anything back, it's a bonus. A mentor years ago told me that lending $100 to a friend and never getting it back or hearing from them about it again is the best $100 you can spend. Story 105. Set up the payment term in advance and have them sign it. If the amounts are small, I will consider them lost money and lost trust. Story 106. Seriously, I never lend more money than I can afford to lose. I don't expect people to pay me back. Story 107. Lend the money and do not expect repayment. Keep this to yourself. Do not pursue them for the money. If they repay, that's great. If they do not, then do not lend them any more money. Story 108. Here's how I have done it. Look, here is the deal. I will give you the money, and I want you to know that I will never ask for it back. I will never bring it up or anything. The deal is that if you ever need money from me in the future, I will not provide it unless this amount is paid back. Deal? Story 109. You can say, if you don't return by a specific date and time, you'll have to pay double the amount. Story 110. Many of us have that problem, and many of us simply don't lend money anymore. It's not worth being manipulated in the end. Story 111. Give me my money. I need it by tonight. I hope that the sun sets and I still do not have my money. Do not give them any room to negotiate about your money. Do not play with them, because they will manipulate your finances. Where I come from, that is unacceptable. People lose their lives over money. Story 112. I always start by apologizing, and when I am paid back, they behave as though they have done me the biggest favor imaginable. Story 113. Seriously, if the money is important or needed, you're probably going to have to say, "Hey, I really need that cash back." Otherwise, it's better to forget about it and not loan to him again. I went through something similar. I asked the guy several times for the money, finally got it, and then decided not to loan to him again. I'm glad I didn't, because he eventually skipped town and owed several of our other friends $300 to $400 each. Story 114. I cannot handle owing someone for a couple of days, let alone 7 years. I'm still waiting for $2,000 from someone I talk to at least a few times a week. It is completely absurd. Every time I bring it up, they say, "Oh, I want to start paying you back in X, like 3 months away." They could simply send me $500 every couple of months and it would be resolved. I don't even know how to ask anymore. I lent the money with the condition that it would be paid back as soon as possible. I usually do not lend money, but I did so because I genuinely believed they would rush to pay it back as they promised. I am not just letting it go now, regardless of how long it has been. It is the principle, and I would never do this to them, especially after promising to pay it back as soon as possible. Story 115. Live by this simple rule. Never loan, only give. If you cannot afford to give the item or money away, then do not. This prevents problems related to trying to get money or items back, especially if they are damaged or destroyed. If you give something to someone, do not expect it back or care what they do with it. If they return it, that is great. It means you can give it to someone else another day. Story 116. I don't want to compromise our relationships with confrontations, and they know that, which is why you aren't getting your money back. I would reevaluate these friendships. I had a friend who needed a place to stay. I owned my own house and charged him $400 a month flat fee. He had his own room and did not need to contribute anything to utilities. Obviously, he had the run of the house just like a roommate would. It wasn't even 3 months before he started struggling to come up with the $400 a month. He worked full-time as a store manager at a game store. Look, I know the money probably wasn't great, but $400 a month, is it to live in a house with full access to everything? This wasn't a situation where you are renting a room and the owners limit your access. His financial problems didn't stop him from buying things. A new TV, a new bed, when I already had a bed and a 40-inch full HD TV in the room he occupied, and he was able to constantly find money for new video games. He didn't respect me or his obligation. Excuse after excuse for about 8 months of him just paying a small amount every month. No joke. He'd throw me like $20 one month and say, "We're good." Then around Christmas, he paid me with gift cards he received. He wasn't exactly the ideal roommate either. I ended up doing piles of his dishes and cleaning up after he cooked because I knew it either would never get done or I'd have to stare at a mess for days before he would finally get around to it. I finally said, "Dude, you have to go. You don't pay what you agreed to, and you don't clean up after yourself." He had the audacity to act like a victim and say that I was using him to pay off my mortgage and that he would get nothing in return for paying me. You live in a house for dirt cheap. That is what you are getting in return. Pack up your things and go pay $1,200 a month to rent a studio apartment, plus utilities, and also get nothing in return. I guess I can thank him for not causing any issues that would force me to evict him. Story 117. It's not you who compromises the friendship by asking for money back. It's them for not returning it without being asked. Just tell them, "When are you going to start paying me back?" I generally don't lend money. If I do, we establish a repayment plan and date, and I never lend money to people who cannot afford to pay me back. I also never loan money that I can't afford to lose. Story 118. My policy is that for any amount below a certain threshold, I will give it as a gift. For any amount above that threshold, I will refuse. Story 119. It is their responsibility to return the money without being asked. People forget. Just ask them, hey, by the way, you still owe me $40, remember? It's not that hard. It's not a confrontation. If you have reminded them a few times and they're making excuses, then that is a different issue. Obviously, do not lend them money in the future. You have to choose between losing the money you already lent or wasting time and effort, potentially damaging your relationship to get it back. Consider whether this is the type of person you want to be friends with anyway. Story 120. People who borrow money and do not repay you know exactly what they are doing. Just live and learn, and do not be fooled again. They can sleep at night, so just let them. It is unfortunate and sad, but it is just a lesson in life. Story 121. If they are my friends, I appeal to their sense of fairness. If they have not mentioned the money, I express my frustration about waiting for them to do the right thing and hope we can resolve the issue. Story 122. I don't lend money. I always let my new girlfriends know that I will take them out to dinner and on trips, but if the day comes when they ask me for rent money or anything like that, the answer will be no. Story 123. Never lend money to friends and family, as it only causes problems when they do not pay it back. If you lend money, never expect to be repaid. Story 124. Why do you lend money to so many people that it becomes a problem? True friends would rarely ask you to lend them money, and you need to learn to say no. I agree, people should pay back without being asked. If someone asks to borrow money and you decide to lend it to them, consider it a gift. Story 125. If they are continuously borrowing money from you and not paying it back, they believe you are a fool and they are not your friends. Story 126. My go-to move is to send the gif from Family Guy of Stewie beating up Brian with a towel rod, saying, "Where's my money, man?" Story 127. They assume you aren't worried about it because you're not saying anything. You don't need to make an excuse. It's your money. Just make it clear that you expect it back and then give gentle reminders. I sold a set of speakers to one of my closest friends and let him make payments. However, he took a long time, and I admit I was upset when I saw him spending money at the mall, but eventually, he paid me back and we moved on. Story 128. When you lend money to your friends and they never pay you back, that should be a clue as to the amount of respect they have for you. Alternatively, it may indicate that they have poor money management skills. Either way, if they ask for money again, you can simply tell them that they no longer have credit with you. Story 129. These individuals to whom you are lending money know they owe you and are the types who will not repay you unless prompted. Even then, they may not repay you. Do not lend money to people like this. In fact, simply avoid lending money to anyone if you want to get it back. Story 130. Hey, I need my money. I don't have it. You don't want me to show up at your workplace or home asking for my money, do you? Because I might bring a few friends with me and make it look very unscrupulous that you owe me a large sum of money. Story 131. Never. I do not help people in hardship expecting anything in return. However, I make decent money, so I do not dwell on it. What is gone is gone. Story 132. I lend money without expecting it back. I will help anyone as much as I can until you do not repay me as promised. I will not ask you about it, and I will still be there for you. No love lost, but I will not help you financially again. It is not just about the money, but the lack of respect I feel. I work hard for my money. Work takes time away from my family, friends, and other things I would rather be doing. Givers have to set limits because takers rarely do. Henry Ford. Story 133. I don't understand how people forget they owe money to someone. They even spend money in public, then claim they don't have money in private and try to borrow more. Story 134. I will spot a friend a meal without prompting, and they will pay for the next one. That is about as far as I go. It hasn't happened to me, but if they ask for a significant amount of money and I can afford to lose it, then I will do my best to help them. However, I would also make it clear that they cannot ask again until they repay me. If your friends are asking to borrow any amount, do not lend more until they have repaid you. Whether you can afford to lose the money or not, you do not want people around you who are only there because of your money. They need to be responsible and frugal if they do not have enough of their own money. Story 135. I'm about to repossess a lawnmower from my Illinois client for non-payment. They have the money to go to Las Vegas so they can pay for my lawnmower. Story 136. Take something, and if they want it back, you need to see your money again. Can be uncomfortable, but if you've already asked an important step, don't skip that. You need to set a precedent they won't cross again. Embrace your inner enforcer. Once, when I was younger, I loaned a friend a couple of $100. When he didn't return it, I took the opportunity to pour myself a glass of milk and place it in a vent. I told him I placed something rotting in his house and that I would tell him where it was if he gave me the money back. Needless to say, he didn't ask to borrow money again. I'm sharing this story because it's funny, maybe a little concerning, and serves as an extreme example. Don't do what I did, but if asking doesn't work, get creative. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.